Hello, everyone, and welcome to Deconstructing Leftists. Today, I want to speak to my neighbors in Virginia, and especially I want to speak to those who are conservative Republicans or even center-right moderate people that live in Virginia who are independents. And you are finding yourself living in a state that has been completely taken over by the far left, mainly because they're able to do that because they've got such a large liberal population right around the District of Columbia. I understand how powerless that you feel right now, and of course, more recently, you have found that the state is looking to take away your representation by gerrymandering the entire state. So if you happen to be in an area where it's more conservative, they're going to be trying to find ways to make sure that even though you may be an area that is more Republican than Democrat, they're going to try to find some way to still give you a liberal Democrat as your representative in Washington, D.C. And you're over here like, what in the world can we do? It wasn't that long ago that your neighbors over in West Virginia put out the welcome mat for you and suggested that you consider the state or the counties that are close to them that are conservative would consider joining West Virginia, which would amount to counties seceding from Virginia and moving over to West Virginia. And while I think that would be a wonderful solution to your dilemma, it's not going to work, and I'll explain why in a moment. Another solution that I would say kind of goes along the same line is that a lot of the counties that are over in the western part or southern part of Virginia that are more conservative simply break away and form a third state of Virginia. You've already got Virginia and West Virginia. Maybe it would be South Virginia or something like that. But you're going to face the same problem you would concerning seceding to West Virginia. That is that the threshold to be able to do that is so incredibly hard, you won't be able to do it. And the biggest hurdle you're going to face is the fact that the state of Virginia would have to approve you leaving their state, and they're not going to do that. They're not going to let you take counties out of their state to join another state. They're not going to let you split the state and form a third state of Virginia. They're just not going to do that. They would lose tax revenue and they'd lose influence because of it. So they're not going to do it. So what can you do? Are you really powerless? Well, the answer is no. Now, it's not the easiest solution in the world, but this is doable. Unlike secession, this is actually doable. You can't take their land because they're not going to let you do it. But you can take yourself and you can move to a conservative state. And you can encourage your fellow Republicans, conservatives, and center-right independents to join you in doing the same thing. And you've got a lot of choices that are not that far away. You certainly could move to West Virginia. That would be an option if you can find work there. If you happen to be retired or something, West Virginia is a beautiful state. I travel through there a lot when I'm driving my truck, on my job. And I love West Virginia. There's also states like Tennessee, which is solidly red. And you would be far more at home over there than you would in Virginia right now. And Tennessee also, beautiful state, especially eastern Tennessee. South Carolina's not that far. That's another possible state you could join. And even states like Ohio, where it's not really as conservative perhaps as some of the others, but it's still a state that voted for President Trump. And it is a state where that it seems to be leaning a little bit more right than anything else. I would say right now it's leaning right. I don't know about in the long-term future, but it is right now. And I live in North Carolina, which is considered a purple state. I would love to see some come move into this state. And I would have recommended it right off the top of the list, but North Carolina, we have a Democrat governor, and we have had a traditional thing happening in North Carolina where we've had a lot of Democrat governors. We've elected a lot of Republican presidents, but we have had a lot of Democrat governors. The state power is split quite a bit because Republicans control the legislature. So it's not nearly like being in Virginia. You'd be a lot better off in North Carolina right now than you would be in Virginia. And we would love to have the help. Maybe we could even make us more solidly, pull us more toward being red, and maybe even help in the upcoming Senate race. But that's up to you. But I would suggest that if you are fed up with what's going on in Virginia, that you consider moving to one of the more conservative states. But don't do it by yourself. Take your neighbors with you. Encourage as many Republicans as possible to leave the state. Now, again, why am I suggesting you do this? Well, certainly for your own good, but it's also for the good of the rest of the country, because here is what's going to end up happening if enough conservatives in the state of Virginia do this. Virginia's going to lose tax money, so you're going to hurt a lot of the governor's initiatives. And what you're going to wind up doing is all those taxes she was going to raise on you, she'll have to raise it even more on all those other liberals that live in Virginia. In addition to that, she's going to lose representation. As the population drops in the state of Virginia, so will their number of congressional seats. So even though they're gerrymandering, and in the short term, they will benefit from what they're doing, if you will take my advice and leave in a mass exodus, flee the state, and you've got plenty of reasons to do it right now. If you would do that in large enough numbers, they will lose congressional seats at the time of the next census. So in the long-term future, Virginia will be harmed by this. And another thing that will benefit everybody in America, except for Democrats, is they will lose in the Electoral College too. Because as they lose representation, they will lose Electoral College representatives when it comes down to the votes for president. And if you help by moving into conservative states like Tennessee, South Carolina, maybe even go over to somewhere like Arkansas, certainly West Virginia, or any of the other states that are more Republican. As you do that, they will gain seats in Congress and the Electoral College representatives, and that will mean more power to elect a Republican the next time around. So while you cannot take your county and secede from the state because the threshold is just too difficult, because the state's not going to let you go, they cannot stop you from physically saying enough is enough and leave with a mass exodus from the state of Virginia. If I lived there, that's what I would do. And I live in North Carolina, but if North Carolina were to go too far left and it got to the point where it went from a swing state, a purple state, and it became a solid blue state where we had to put up with stuff like what you all are having to put up with in Virginia, I would leave. And I've already got my eye on other states that I would consider moving to. Tennessee, certainly one of them. Arkansas would be one of them. But there are other states that I would consider moving into. I would even consider West Virginia. They certainly were putting out the welcome mat to conservative Republicans that were feeling disenfranchised in the state that they're in. I would even consider living in West Virginia. But the thing is, I would not continue to put up with that. No, you ain't going to be able to split your state. If I was in the state of North Carolina, we have to deal with a lot of the eastern states, or eastern counties, I should say. Those around the capital area, Raleigh-Durham area. We have to deal with a lot of liberal influence over there. But because we have a lot of conservatives in the western part of the state, we're able to continue to elect Republicans. But if the situation were something like what's happening in Virginia, or it was to move that way, absolutely I would leave the state of North Carolina. And it may not be the easiest thing. You will have to possibly find new employment, and you'll have to move, and that's always a chore to do that. But what other choice do you have? You're either going to do that, or you're just going to take it and have to put up with all the mess that you're having to deal with. The governor ran as a centrist and a moderate, and of course, big surprise, she turned out to be an ultra left-wing radical liberal. And she does that. That's what Democrats do. They move to the center during the election cycle, and then they go right back and show who they really are. Well, you're stuck with her right now, and she's going to be the governor for a while. So, and she's making a lasting negative impact on the state of Virginia. You can't do anything about it except for leave, and that's really, to me, the best solution. So, I'm encouraging Republicans, conservatives, and even center-right independents. This is the time for action. You can't pull counties out, but you can leave. And that's what I would encourage you to do. Well, that's all I want to talk about on today's Deconstructing Leftists. If you are not a subscriber to my channel, I want to invite you to subscribe. And until the next time, take care, everyone.